So the Chrome team have finally shipped an update that lets the Chrome DevTools MCP server talk to a running instance of Chrome to do things like debug issues behind a login page, perform analysis on a live session, and even do some really cool debugging things like access an element that's been selected, specific errors, and even network activities. But with other AI browser debugging tools like Agent Browser and Playwright, adding a CLI with skills as well as an MCP server, is this something the Chrome DevTools MCP will have to add in the future? Hit subscribe and let's find out. A few months ago, Angus created a video giving a great overview of the Chrome DevTools MCP server, but at the time it could only launch a new Chrome session, or you could also connect it to a remote debugging port, but that required a lot of manual setup. But now in Chrome version 1.4.4 and above, with the remote debugging flag turned on, the Chrome MCP tool will now auto-detect an open session, which can be used for debugging, which changes the game for me personally because I prefer to use Claude code in the terminal and means I don't have to use AI browsers like Deer, Comet, and even the Claude Chrome extension, or even useful AI debugging tools like React Grab. Let's see these new Chrome DevTools MCP features in action. You'll first need to have the MCP server installed with the auto connect option available. I'm using OpenCode, but this supports many agent harnesses. And inside Chrome, you'll have to navigate to this URL and make sure you have this option turned on. Now, previously, you'd have to start a session with a command like this, and the agent will connect to the exposed port via HTTP. But with the newer way inside this UI, you can start Chrome as you normally would, having access to all your cookies, history, and whatnot, and you can turn it off whenever you're done. Now, if you're security conscious, later on in the video, I can show you how to connect to a more private version of Chrome. But after you've done those two things, so toggled on this option and connected to the MCP server with the auto connect option, that should be it. I can ask my agent to check the performance of BetaStack, and inside Chrome, I'll get this pop-up asking if I want to allow remote debugging, and then I'll have this banner up here. Now, the agent has been able to navigate to the BetaStack website, and now it's using the Lighthouse Audit tool to give me some core web vitals, Lighthouse scores, and some other details. But now, let's do something useful. Here is a language learning app that I'm working on. I've logged in as an admin, navigated to content, a specific unit, and gone to this exercise. And I've noticed on the exercise modal that the save button down here is different from the other buttons on the site. So instead of manually telling the agent to replicate my steps, so logging in and navigating to this specific page, I'm going to select this save button in the inspect tools and then ask the agent if it can see the element I've selected. And after a while, it's able to see I have the save button selected. So now I'm going to ask it to change the style of the save button to look like the new exercise button, which is the button over here if you can see it. And after a few seconds, it's changed the style of the button to exactly how I wanted it. Note, if you're running the MCP server in a sandboxed environment, you'd have to use the browser URL option with the port for remote debugging as HTTP, not WebSockets. And if you're security conscious, you'll need to add the user data directory with a specific location to the MCP server as an option, which will mean the agents won't have access to your existing cookies, passwords, browser history, and much more, and you'd have to re-log in to those sites if you want the agent to have access to them. Now, as cool as this is, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know I'm not the biggest fan of MCP servers because they do use up a lot of context if you have a lot of them. But luckily, the Chrome DevTools MCP server does allow you to do everything with a CLI, which not many people know about because it's kind of hidden, because you'll have to go into the skills directory and then Chrome DevTools CLI to find out about this experimental feature, which gives your agent information on how to use it, and also some installation instructions if you haven't installed it already. This is basically a thin wrapper around the MCP server, and if you already have it running inside an agent harness, this CLI won't use that because it uses its own daemon. This command gives you information about the default daemon that runs, and you can already see it set the browser URL flag with some other flags like headless and isolated. But you'll also notice that there's no auto-connect inside the available CLI options. So if you haven't run Chrome via the terminal, you'd have to quit this existing one and then run it like this, making sure that if you have the remote debugging port flag, you have to have the user data flag. So now with that in place, I can start the daemon like this, get the list of pages, which only shows one new tab because there isn't much at the moment, But of course, the real power comes when you use it with an agent. So if I turn off the Chrome MCP tool, select this button in DevTools and ask the agent to use the CLI to figure out what element is selected, and we can see it's been able to figure that out. Note the information in the user data directory persists between sessions, so this keeps all my cookies, browser information, and so on. Also, there are many more things the Chrome DevTools CLI can do, so I recommend you go ahead and check out this skill, and maybe in the future they may introduce the auto connect feature. So there you have it, a quick run through of some of the new cool features from the Chrome DevTools MCP server and CLI, which will definitely improve your debugging experience with coding assistance. As an Arc user, yes, I still use Arc, I really wish this feature would come to it in the future. But until then, I'm happy to use Vercel's Agent Browser, which has been working really well for me. And if you know nothing about Agent Browser, check out this video I made a while back, although it has improved a lot since then. So maybe it's time for me to make another video?